In the final year of my PhD, many years ago, I was spending most of my days at my computer, many hours at a stretch, and often late into the night. I skipped regular meals and worked at the computer for hours on end, gobbling chocolate cookies. By the time I finished my PhD, I was 20 kilos overweight. Welcome to Frank Staiano Explains. I'm a professor at the University of Cambridge, and like many computer scientists, I spend most of my day in a chair in front of a computer, a pretty sedentary lifestyle. It's not difficult for people like me to slowly put on weight over time, especially once we are no longer in our 20s and our metabolism slows down. And that's why I think that understanding how to lose fat is a topic of interest for viewers of this channel. You are young now, and it seems like you can do anything with your body, but your body won't be so forgiving as you grow older. I'm in no way an authority on nutrition or fitness, and I'm not a medical doctor, but I have serious skin in this particular game. About 10 years ago, I was diagnosed with an incurable condition, a disease that, if untreated, might lead to blindness or leg amputation. There's no known treatment that will cure a patient from this condition. And if you have fat around your internal organs, as opposed to simply subcutaneous fat, which is not so dangerous, it contributes to making this disease progressively worse. So I had a pretty strong motivation to get rid of my pot belly. This was not simply about looking good in the mirror. It was about not losing my eyesight or my legs. I strictly followed the regime my doctor prescribed: reduce portion sizes, eat less meat, more vegetables, lots of exercise and so on, but it just didn't work. And I was always hungry. Over the years, I tried a variety of other strategies, including many motivational tapes, even self-hypnosis, and a few of these gave temporary small results, but nothing really worked permanently. And I was jealous of other people who remained effortlessly thin even though they didn't go to work by bike and they didn't train in martial arts twice a week like I did. They did not restrict portion sizes. Whereas I, who was exercising and going hungry all the time, which I assure you is not pleasant, couldn't get my fat to go down. This went on for several uncomfortable years. One day, my good friend Stuart heard of my troubles and told me that losing fat is very easy. The reason we get fat, he said, is because when we eat more than we consume, the body stores the surplus energy as fat to be able to use it later, like putting leftovers in the fridge. But in our modern society, food is always plentiful, so our body has forgotten how to get stuff out of the fridge. When it needs more energy, the body just makes you feel hungry so that you eat some more and puts the leftover in the fridge again. But it never actually uses any of those leftovers. Even when you have plenty, it has basically forgotten how to do that. So if you want to lose fat, you must teach your body to get the stuff out of the fridge instead of requesting new food every time. And the way you do it, he told me, is by avoiding carbohydrates and eating plenty of fat instead. And if you do that, the great thing is you will not be hungry because the fat will fill you up. This all sounded very hard to believe. How can eating lots of fat be a good idea if my objective is precisely to lose fat? And then, no carbohydrates. Does this mean that even an absolutely natural, healthy and organic apple from the apple tree in my garden is off limits? What happened to an apple a day keeps the doctor away? And then no carbs also means no pasta, no pizza, no ice cream. How could these classic Italian foods be bad if all you hear about is the health benefits of the Mediterranean diet? But I knew Stuart very well, and I knew he's a pretty smart guy, so I suspended disbelief and I told him, okay, look, I'm a scientist, you're a scientist. We believe in evidence. I've tried plenty of things that didn't work, so I'll keep an open mind, and I'll try your method religiously for a month. I've been measuring my weight and body fat daily for decades, so I will see right away in the numbers whether your method makes a difference. If it does, I'll keep going. If it doesn't, it would be just one more thing I tried and I won't have lost much anyway. So a few days later, Stuart gave me a book. I found it a bit slow and a bit difficult in places, but I still read it from beginning to end, and I started doing what it and my friend had said. It was not easy to avoid carbs altogether, but I kept at it, and within a couple of weeks I started noticing a difference. Yes, my weight was going down, but more importantly my body fat was going down. It wasn't just water or muscle loss. And even more importantly, I wasn't hungry. Of those things I could eat, I could actually eat as much as I wanted. That was really liberating. So when by the end of the month I had lost about 2.5 kilos, and without hunger, unlike all the other methods I had tried, then I decided the experiment was a success, and I kept going indefinitely. My weight and body fat kept going down until they stabilized at some healthy levels. The next time I saw the specialist nurse at the medical practice, she noticed the improvement in my blood parameters and in my weight, but she really didn't like my cutting out the carbs. She said, "Don't do that. We don't like people eliminating entire food groups. These are fad diets. It's not sustainable. You must follow a healthy diet that you can maintain for the long term. And I thought to myself, yeah, but the stuff that you told me to do years ago never made me lose any fat. Plus, it made me always hungry. Whereas with this method, I can eat as much as I want, and I have finally been able to shed quite a bit of fat. So you can say what you like. I didn't tell her, but I thought, but it's my body, and I know what I will keep on doing. So here's what worked for me, and I'm not advising you to do the same, and I'm not guaranteeing that any of this will work for you the way it did for me. I just want to broaden your horizon and give you hope. I could go on at length about the mechanisms that make this work, what happened to me, the revelations I had when I discussed this with my actual doctor, the various pitfalls and corrections, and please say football if you would like me to expand. But for now, I'm just going to share a few key insights from my personal experience. 1. I don't care about losing subcutaneous fat. I care about losing visceral fat, the fat that deposits around my gut and my internal organs, because that has an actively detrimental role on my metabolism. 2. I cannot hope to lose fat specifically from my belly, or from my cheeks, or from my bum, or anywhere else. No targeted intervention works short of surgical removal of the fat. I can only lose fat overall throughout my body, and then I will also lose it from wherever it is that I have the most. 3. The human body is a complex system of systems with many interlocking biological feedback loops, with hormones that have potent effects on many things at once, and even the top-class scientists who study this stuff in the 21st century are still trying to figure out how everything works. There are conflicting theories about what to do, about how things behave, and I don't know which one is right, and the way I discovered what worked for me was to try out each approach for an extended period of time and accurately measuring everything. I'm a scientist, I keep an open mind, I collect data, and I trust the evidence. I devote some time every morning to measuring my weight, my waistline, my body fat percentage, my visceral fat, some blood parameters, and so on, and I religiously record all this on my phone so that I can then monitor statistical trends rather than just anecdotal data. And what works for me may or may not work for you, but what I know for sure is that if I cannot measure it, then I cannot improve it. 4. What did work for me was this low carbohydrate, high fat, ketogenic diet. It's very counterintuitive that eating fat won't make you fat, but it did work. And I could explain in detail the biology in some other video. I won't do it today. Actually, not eating carbohydrates can be socially awkward when you eat out with other people. But for me, the consequences of allowing my disease to progress would be so devastating that I have strictly stuck to my plan for over 4 years now, regardless of what other people say when I eat out with them and I do weird things. 5. This change in my nutrition triggered a radical change in my metabolism and was the single most significant intervention I ever did in my quest towards fat loss. It had a much more significant effect than anything else I tried, including exercise. I was not achieving any fat loss through cycling to work every day and practicing martial arts twice a week. However, with that said, I noticed that combining this dietary change with intense exercise has a kind of multiplicative effect on the metabolic benefits rather than just additive. Keto and exercise strongly reinforce each other, and they gave me much better results than either alone. 6. It has not always been smooth sailing. After several months of good results initially, I then had very frustrating periods where I regained fat, despite the fact that I was still avoiding carbohydrates pretty strictly, and I also suffered from other collateral problems like cramps, constipation, and other stuff. And I've had to continue experimenting month by month, measuring very accurately, annotating any changes in conditions, formulate hypotheses, personal hypotheses on what might have caused this or that. Was it perhaps, I don't know, the milk, because milk contains lactose? Okay, well, try 2 weeks without milk and see if you notice a statistically significant change. Was I actually eating too much protein? Well, let me try changing that for 2 weeks and see if I notice a change. Was the medication I was taking interfering? Well, let's agree with the doctor and try suspending the medication for a few months and see what the blood tests say after that. It never ends. It's not easy at all. I need to continue to be alert at all times. To be honest, I probably wouldn't do it if it were just for how I look in the mirror. But I'm doing it to stop the progression of this incurable disease. I dearly wish I had done something like that before actually getting that disease, and that's why I'm telling you all this. It's a high price, but it's working. And I will never be cured, but my blood tests and my waistline are now under control. So I hope I'm limiting the consequences of what I got, and I will never get out of. I keep monitoring, I keep reading new books, I keep experimenting on myself and taking notes. That's what worked for me. That's how I discovered what worked for me. 7. Finally, the main reason why I have been able to sustain this low-carb, high-fat ketogenic diet for over 4 years so far is that unlike any other form of diet I previously tried, with LCHF, I can eat to satiety. True, there are foods that I love that I can no longer eat and I miss them, but there are other foods I also love of which I can eat as much as I like. And that's why I keep this up for years and I couldn't with other diets. I am no longer hungry, and plus it actually works.